Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto 2 Blue Vortex manga chapter review. This one's going to be for chapter 20, which is called Because of Love. Overall, I thought this was a very good chapter. I think to be expected because it is a volume ending chapter. It's a divisible by 4 chapter, so you know what happens at the end of a volume, and that is typically when they either do relatively big reveals or a big setup for the next volume to be quite impactful. And this one, especially after I think last chapter was not maybe the strongest chapter in the series, it didn't maybe do as much as we maybe wanted it to do. This one I think definitely made up for it by having it be quite impactful on basically all sides of the story. We made big progress with, Konohamaru and Matsuri, and it's going to be fascinating to see how that eventually kind of gets resolved. Just how bad of a situation is Konohamaru in by the end of this. That's an interesting one. There's obviously huge things, like the big cliffhanger for this chapter is with Sarada and the mangekyo sharingan, but Yodo is also down and, as far as we're aware, dying. Maybe we don't expect her to die, but what's going on there? And I think they're leading you down one path, and but we'll have to wait and see which way things end up going, because it does feel like we are probably going to have to build up to, I think, the first, death of one of the Divine Tree characters, the first proper win there, just to keep the actual overall arc kind of going, and like we're not just stuck in action kind of forever. But a good chapter, definitely. So let's go through this page by page and discuss. So cover page is Konohamaru, which I think is quite fitting for the last few chapters that we've had, but especially I think this chapter as well. Like I said, it's chapter 20, Because of Love. And again, we continue to hit that point home that yes, a lot of the themes, character arcs, stuff that we're dealing with right now is actually with a lot of characters related to love. The Divine Tree characters is very clearly focused on that, but we're addressing it to a certain degree with Konohamaru, Sarada, Sumire, Yodo. We kind of touched on it a little bit with Araya to a certain degree, and so on. So we are committing to this, which I don't really mind, just because I don't think Naruto has ever over focused on this, but I'm fascinated to see what the takeaway by the end of things actually is. But let's get into the chapter. So yeah, we open up with Matsuri and her confrontation with Konohamaru. Of course, they're in this unique situation where her kind of cloak, scarf kind of tendrils have made a kind of cocoon around Konohamaru's face, but like her face is obviously in it as well. So they're talking to each other quite closely, just like face to face, head to head, basically. She is just basically making her mind up about how exactly she's going to finish off Konohamaru after, pretty much having him in this really vulnerable situation here. So she's like, I'll let you choose, basically. Will I just immediately kill you by snapping your neck, or do you want to chat right up until the moment I devour you? It's at this point we bring up Shikamaru and sort of the mission goal, the way he wants Konohamaru and the whole team to be on this mission when it comes to dealing with the Divine Tree characters. Again, it's become friends with them, win them over, tame them while these wild beasts are still innocent cubblings, and then we'll return to this later on when the plan properly gets sort of like executed, obviously. But the idea here for Konohamaru is lean into the relationship. It makes her vulnerable, that she doesn't know what she's feeling and stuff like that. If you properly lean into kind of being charming, you can diffuse the situation and have a chance to turn things around completely. And there's been a little bit of is Konohamaru being a little bit too naive about this? Can he bring himself to be that kind of almost like emotionless shinobi and manipulate someone like this? And we'll get to the point of like, oh, he's a little bit too pure for this exact angle of things, taking this much advantage of someone's emotions, even if they're this kind of half beast-like kind of character that kind of Matsuri is. But we'll cover that as we get to it later on. So he does start to lean into this. Didn't you say earlier that getting to talk so much made this the best day of your life? If you devour me, I'll die, and we won't get to talk like this ever again. And the blush comes back from her. Yes, it was fun, but it was also simultaneously terrifying. Like, my sanity was slipping away. You're dangerous to me. You make me crazy. That's what has become clear to me. My defensive instinct tells me to eliminate the danger. Conversely, there's a part of me that desires you. As they mix together, I feel compelled to devour you. So a rather kind of clear almost way of addressing this, of like, why do these characters have a target who is actually kind of technically a loved one of the person they're based on? And then again, divine trees inherently want to devour an Otsutsuki to become a divine tree, and you can see how these wires are getting crossed. It's what the instinctual side of them wants is to devour an Otsutsuki to become what they need to be. But the second the emotions kind of from the person they're based on comes in, it's, this is a person I like and kind of want a strong relationship with, and it's like, I want them, I want to seek them out, and not to have a relationship with, but to devour. And they're getting very confused when they encounter that, in that she wants to devour, but she can't really bring herself to do it because she feels these other emotions. And it's a very complicated thing. And obviously, I think it's probably maybe presented the most bluntly and clearly in this situation because it's direct kind of romance. But I'm assuming we're going to do stuff like this that's quite similar when it comes to Hidari, and if he encounters Sarada, and the whole like you're my daughter kind of aspect comes out, and some of those feelings begin to kind of enter the equation. Like I said, I think with Mamushi, the bug guy, they're maybe going to go for maybe obsessive love on that side of things, and that's kind of the way that they're going to play it up. There is going to be a way to put these characters who seem extremely powerful and capable off their game by just addressing the fact that they have a weakness when it comes to sort of one individual. But it seems to be a slightly different relationship that is the case with that person in each situation. Obviously, Jura is the one kind of odd one out, but, you know, I suppose we'll get the deal with him later on. So yeah, she seems to have made her mind up to devour him, and she kind of, because she has all the tendrils reaching around into his back, she kind of like crushes them a little bit more. So the wound on his back is getting kind of crushed. His face is beginning to get a little bit kind of crushed. But she hasn't finished the job yet, and we'll come back to this. It's at this point we go to the Ryu fight scene here, and we continue this. Again, without Araya's sword, they don't have a direct counter to the sand, the iron sand, which again, the big attack that Ryu seems to have is that if he hits you with the sand and places it on you, you are his puppet, basically. So they really have to avoid getting hit by this at all, but they can't. Mitsuki is the only one who seems to have the power to maybe stay in the fight in any way, but even he is getting kind of hit around at this point. So pretty much everyone else is getting hit and captured at this point, and it leaves Yodo and Sarada as the last two who he hasn't captured as his puppets yet. It's at this point he basically brings up the idea of, oh, how about we do this? Maybe there is a way for you to survive this. What if you guys tell me everything you know about Otsutsuki Boruto, his accomplice, tell me where they are, weaknesses, any info you have, and I'll let you go. Just tell me something. And he's just like, hey, I'll be honorable throughout this, kind of, even though kind of you guys are not kind of being. Yodo speaks to Sarada at this point and is like, hey, like just tell them where Boruto is. You know, don't you? But she refuses to. You know, you don't believe that you actually will go ahead with this deal. Plus, I would never sell out a friend to save myself, not even to, you know, share intel that, you know, that I don't even have. And then again, they directly bring it up here, the scene with Sumire, that, you know, we may have taken Boruto's side outwardly, yet we know almost no crucial intel about him. But it's because of that we've been able to live freely like this. And then there's the other side of this, which is that if we did know information, we'd maybe be a bit of a burden to Boruto. So they're kind of protected in this way by the fact that they don't know anything about him. It is an honest answer that we just have no intel to give you about Boruto. He purposely keeps everyone hands off at this point in time. So that's the interesting point. Then we get to Yodo kind of realizing maybe the truth of the situation. This is maybe where the love aspect begins to come in on this side of things. I've long wondered why you keep sticking up for a rogue ninja who's sought by his village for committing serious offenses, but I think I finally know. He's the kind of guy who makes you want to always have his back even if the rest of the world hates him, right? I feel the same about Shinki. So that's an interesting way of kind of putting it, but like there's definitely the kind of romance angle on this like as well, absolutely. But this is also actually the angle as well, which is that like you want to have his back, and in a way you haven't been able to up to now. You have been maybe a little bit more of a burden, and like Sumire kind of has pointed that out. It's maybe being kind of addressed in this situation as well. And we'll get to that point at the end, which is, I think, really interesting. But anyway, they have to reveal that, yes, they don't have any intel on Boruto. So it forces Yodo into this kind of awkward situation where she's like, okay, you can have me instead. I'll cooperate with you. You can use my enemy detecting abilities. I'll gather information for you. In exchange, let the others go. This is the last ditch opportunity because otherwise they're all just going to get captured. I think you can sort of tell it is Yodo maybe trying to go back to shinobi manipulation tactics, but because she let her emotions get in the way of things early on, there's no going back to he can trust her now, so this is not going to work, as we'll see. But anyway, we cut back to Konohamaru and Matsuri. So as she goes to finish the job, she can't. She starts to cry. A tear falls from her eye, and she doesn't know what it is. Like, why is water coming out of my eyes? I don't understand this or why it's happening. Konohamaru calls out to her full force Matsuri, and this causes her heart to start beating. Her heart is racing just from her name being called. And why is this liquid pouring from my eyes? And he says, you're shedding tears. What's going on? You must be feeling sad, which means you don't want to kill me. And at this point, she's full on crying. And we get some very interesting cutaways as this scene continues back to Jura and Hidari, kind of technically, I suppose, watching this on, or sensing at least what's going on. And right now it's just an assessment, I suppose. It's just Jura taking this in. But you can interestingly see that, what is it here? Is it a tear also kind of falls down Jura's, out of Jura's eye as well, which is kind of a little interesting detail there. Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to show there, is that like that's what's happening here. He's assessing what's happening here and is taking this in. He's kind of learning just as much as the rest of them are, and we'll see his assessment on the situation that Matsuri is in a moment. Interestingly, Hidari kind of watches on a little bit emotionlessly, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, she's like, tears. What are tears? What's going on with me? Konohamaru asks for a favor. Could you squeeze my hand? And he's looking at her right in the eyes. Let's join hands. That's how a special relationship starts. And she's like, special relationship? And she reaches out. She grabs his hands. They kind of interlock their fingers. So warm. And we again go back to Shikamaru's advice. Konohamaru, become friends with them. Win them over. Tame them while these wild beasts are still innocent cublings. And then betray them. And all of a sudden, interlinked hands, Konohamaru just boom, activates double Rasengan, makes it bigger and bigger, turns it into giant Rasengan. He kind of shatters out of the tentacle kind of encasement that he's in. He's kind of annihilated her hands here in this as well. A full-on betrayal here of her kind of emotions, I guess. Yeah, it turns into giant Rasengan. He seems to have the opportunity here to just push this forward and effectively destroy her, or at least gain access to her Soul Thorn bulb. But it's noted here, did your heart reel just now? This is a perfect plan if you truly consider them nothing but foes. Get them to drop their guard so you can kill them. And clearly the point that they're making here is that Konohamaru isn't just considering them nothing but foes. He can't throw all of his emotion about this situation away completely. And I think part of that is definitely that there's an element of some of this is Moegi's feelings, I guess, you know, that are part of this. Even though Matsuri is not Moegi, there is a resemblance there, and then the feelings are clearly coming from that side of things as well. And I guess deep down, he's just not able to be that sort of maybe callous, not that kind of unfeeling as a shinobi. And so he holds back ever so slightly, and it seems like this is going to be his downfall. She calls out to him, Konohamaru-chan, and then we get the kind of explanation of this. So Jura is watching on. Because of love, Matsuri wavered over devouring him and allowed him to trick her and deliver a painful counterattack. And also because of love, Saritobi Konohamaru fell prey to doubt and foolishly let victory slip away from his grasp. And so, yeah, he has not finished the job, and because of that, she fires back, and she's coming at him with her cloak kind of tendrils again, and it looks like she's about to kill Konohamaru. And it looks like he's wide open. She's going to stab him, I guess, directly through the stomach. And we cut to the next page, and it's Yodo getting stabbed through the stomach by Ryu with iron sand. So they don't show what happens to Konohamaru here, leaving it very open for the idea of, well, surely they're not just going to repeat the same thing again. Will they really just have two characters just get stabbed straight through, like on either side of this story, which is technically the same fight, they're just separated by a little bit of distance. I'm not sure. So I think there's more to come with the Matsuri Konohamaru fight here, because I think this is not the fight they're going to wrap up now, I don't think. Because again, I think they have to bring Inoshika Cho in on this fight. I think it actually works in the story's favor if they both get away from this, Konohamaru and Matsuri, but they build up to the next confrontation, and then we go into that one, and there's now real emotion in it, because it's not their first time fighting. There is this whole cat and mouse game that they played here. They had this kind of emotional connection, and now she feels fully betrayed by him. He's nearly been killed by her. How will their next fight go? And if Konohamaru gets out of this one alive, is he going to have to kind of harden himself to get through the next kind of conflict in that way and actually, properly defeat her to get kind of Moegi back? There is some very interesting character kind of points coming out of this, and I think they almost led you down the road in this chapter of thinking that in maybe as a bit of a surprise, might Matsuri be the first of them to fall, but I actually think they're going to do it the other way around, ultimately. So, yeah, like I said, we cut back to the other part of the story with Ryu and the younger shinobi, and yeah, Ryu's response to Yodo's offer is to stab her. So she's the one who gets what seems like fatally injured. She still gets to talk a bit here, but she is down. This is a devastating blow. I don't think they're going to kill her off, but there's a lot of logistics, I suppose, to work out as we get to the end of this fight and this story. So, Sarada rushes over to her, and there is a bit of a conversation here. Why can't things go well for once? It's okay, I know that I'm done for. Sarada gets hit at this point by the iron sand, so she's about to become a puppet. Then we get the more emotional kind of statements from Yodo here. I'm not sure why it's happening now, but I can hear it real well. You don't know yourself at all, do you? Your feelings, why you want to be strong. I can tell right now. It's clear to me that you misunderstand. You're probably deluding yourself subconsciously. What are you talking about? I'm referring to that power you've been letting rot. So she tries to fight back against this, but she's going to be captured by the puppetry of the iron sand. Yodo continues, I don't know why or what you're holding back for, but it's okay to use it for things other than just the greater good. You're allowed to use it for, and only for, that special person in your life to protect them. And there is a visual here of Boruto kind of highlighting what the point that's being made here is. That you are allowed to use this secret ability you're holding on to for the person that you really care about. It doesn't just have to be about use it at the moment that's for the best thing. You can protect something that is personal to you as well. And so yeah, the sharingan activates, and at this point the sand begins to fall off people. Actually, it's being sucked up into the air. It begins to come off Ryu. It begins to come off Mitsuki, Araya, Sarada herself. All of this sort of stuff. It's peeling away, kind of what's happening. And what we see is, as we look into the air, there is this kind of black hole type thing, this almost like portal open in the air, and all of the iron sand is being sucked into it from a distance off everyone. And no one knows what's happening here. Mitsuki reacts to this. It's all the iron sand is gathering in one spot. No, wait, it's being sucked in. He then looks over at Sarada, who looks very serious, and he can see as he looks closer and closer, her mangekyo sharingan is activated. She is doing this, and she finally looks at the camera, and we get to see again her mangekyo sharingan. So again, it's a nice pattern, but it's maybe a more simple one than we're maybe used to, with the one obviously dot in the middle, and then the triangles kind of all circling around it. So pretty nice. Now, there's obviously a comparison to be made here with this ability, in that it's quite similar to kind of Obito / Kakashi's ability, Kamui. Specifically more the one that Kakashi used, the more long-range one, where, yeah, he would look at something and it would effectively create a kind of portal suction type thing and suck stuff in. It works functionally a little bit differently, because that one had a sucking effect in the sense that he would activate it literally on someone and they would get kind of sucked in because it literally was touching them. Whereas this one is really far away and actually seems to have a bit of a black hole, like vacuum style effect to it, where stuff is actually being drawn into it. It's not that like it's on someone and it's getting sucked in. There's also a little bit of a sense that she's specifically choosing to target stuff. There is one panel that highlights a kunai in the ground, so maybe they're no, that's just her dropping the kunai. Yeah, because yeah, throughout the plot, yeah, it's he's puppeting her to use the kunai to kill Yodo, but she just drops it here. So no, she's specifically only targeting the iron sand. I was about to say, is she focusing on everything that's metal, but no, it is just the sand. So there is a level of control over that. Is it a weight-based thing, or does she just have that level of delicate control where she can literally choose what to be sucked into this? Like if she switched and made it people, would everyone start go flying in there? But either way, it is some sort of dimensional, I guess, jutsu. Like, unless they do reveal that, like, actually, no, it's not a portal, like you get destroyed if you go in there, it will actually tear you apart. It's kind of gravity based to a certain degree. But if it is very Kamui based, then this is being sent to the kind of Kamui dimension. And then this would also bring up the idea that, well, who thought her to do this? Of course, it probably has to be Kakashi, and that's what we've been waiting for, is who actually trained her to get to the point where she could use it. And then there are questions that are being brought up here in terms of like, okay, Yodo, without properly knowing Sarada, already gets the impression that you have kept this ability hidden and kind of have refused to use it until almost like a perfect moment. But now it's like, hey, you've been given the ability to use it to protect people if you want to. And now she is deciding to use it. Because one of the big things with the mangekyo sharingan, especially what seems to just be the very standard version here, is just after awakening it, is if you overuse it, you will gradually make yourself blind. And as far as we're aware, the only counter to that is to basically get like what, an eye transplant from someone in your family to turn it into the eternal mangekyo sharingan. And I doubt that that's happened off screen. So is that still in play? That's a major thing that is going to need to be addressed here in terms of like, is that the limitation placed on this ability is just that, hey, because we can't just go around eye transplanting you whenever you need to, you do have to very cautiously use this ability. Or are we going to build up to something else? Because it's a slightly dark thought, but like the only, it feels like kind of valid target potentially here is Sasuke, but then even he isn't like the perfect choice because he only has one Sharingan and like he's now missing his Rinnegan eye. So like how does that work ultimately? Does that solve the whole thing? One eye transplant but not the other? And then are we even going back to the eye transplants? I'm not sure that's maybe the direction we want to go in, because I think everyone's had the kind of idea in their head of, is there actually a lighter path for the Uchiha? Why is their ability always based in darkness, and it always leads to that kind of conflict in a way within the family? Is there a way through Sarada to kind of have, like, this is the light-based way to go through it that doesn't have to be, in the shadows to a certain degree? Will be interesting to see how exactly they go about doing this, because I'm guessing they will explain at least the core mechanics of what this is. That, like, is it Kamui? Is it more of a black hole thing? Is there a dimensional aspect involved here? Probably is my assumption, but we just right now don't fully know. But it's unique. It's a very unique ability depending on how it works, because if it does have the dimensional aspects, it opens the door to a lot of clever tactics, and you can see this ability coming into play in later fights towards the end of the series, where she can suck things into it, and then maybe she has a reverse ability that can send stuff kind of flying out, or who knows. Plus, the mangekyo is a sort of versatile ability. There is still stuff like, does she have Amaterasu, Susanoo, and some of these other abilities as well. Like, how far does this actually go is a big question. There's a lot to be answered here, because we've been waiting for this. Sarada to use her mangekyo for so long. She finally has. And the idea, I think, that they're kind of presenting here is that Sarada, without using this ability, is not really able to be a help to Boruto. She kind of is maybe a hindrance, but this ability is actually something that will allow her to protect Boruto. This puts her on the level where she can fight alongside him, and that's the kind of point that's being made here, I think, to a certain degree. Now, there's still a bit of an arc to go on here in terms of what is Sarada's takeaway coming out of this, in terms of, yeah, why have you not used this ability before? Just from her own perspective, like, why has she made this choice? How does she feel about what Sumire said to her? What Yodo has now said to her? And it feels like, to a certain degree, is this her having to admit that she does love Boruto and does want to protect him in that way? And this is the way that she can protect him, because there is that kind of aspect of, like, the relationship to a certain degree that, like, Boruto had to step in to protect Sarada and kind of lost an eye, got injured. Now she has an ability that theoretically will make her blind over time, and she will use that to protect him in reverse. There's a few, like, symbolic thematic connections that you can begin to make here if this is what we're doing. But I'm so happy that we're finally here. That 20 chapters in, we get the mangekyo reveal. We can open up a lot of doors from here about who did she learn to train from with it, and what is her mentality when it comes to using / not using it. Then, within this fight, does this open the pathway to victory here? If she can get rid of basically all or most of the iron sand, it obviously is another way to counter the puppet aspect of the jutsu. They're obviously down a combatant here, because I don't think Yodo is going to be able to fight anymore. I don't think she's going to die, but she's out of action for now. So do the rest of them have the ability now with Sarada's mangekyo to just win? And I think they do. ultimately, because I think there probably is a little bit with, say, like Mitsuki, where maybe there's a bit of a reveal with him to come out, a next level that he perhaps has. There maybe is an opportunity for Yodo, I think, to maybe, you know, surprise us by like springing up and like delivering a devastating blow, because she maybe hasn't been super effective in a lot of what she's been doing up to now. So her getting a moment to shine would actually be kind of nice, useful in really helping to finish the fight again for the person that she really cares about. And she's going to have to be active, I suppose, for what we assume eventually will be the return of Shinki and hopefully Gara as well. And I do think that this is the fight where, yeah, here's the proof of you can win, you can get the Soul Thorn Bulb, you can use that to free someone, and it all works. And now it's about how we deal with the rest of them from here. And of course, on the other side of the story, my thoughts right now are that I do think Konohamaru and Matsuri their fight will be broken up. They will get away, will build to the next conflict between them, and it will be even more, all the more intense because of what just happened. Maybe they'll wrap up both of these at the same time, but I have my doubts that that's going to be the way they go with it here. Because they're going very back and forth, and I think because they did the thing of, it looks like Konohamaru is about to be ran through, but actually it's Yodo who gets ran through, that he won't be just like killed off, like the exact same thing won't just happen to him in the next chapter. So they don't want to be super repetitive like that. So always surprises. I think it's very difficult to predict a lot of what happens in this manga, which is a good point. Sometimes they maybe are overly a little bit all over the place. You can't solidly know what's happening next, but it certainly makes it exciting. Especially because they can choose to go back to the Kawaki stuff with Amado whenever they need to, and stuff like that. So still huge stuff happening, and I'm glad that this chapter had, I think, some pretty good characterization and some big moments. I really like the direction we're in currently with the manga, so super excited for the next volume, the next couple of chapters. I just hope they keep the notable aspects of the chapters keep coming. So they're my thoughts on the chapter. Really liked it, but let me know in the comments what your thoughts were. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.